Hello everybody, Mac here. Welcome back to the show. We are halfway through, I believe we are halfway through October, which means we are halfway through Bricktober at this point. And today we are coming back to our Universal Monsters, unfortunately now defunct Jada line. And we are starting off with the Wolfman. The Wolfman is from the second wave, unfortunately the last wave of figures that Jada brought out for the Universal Monsters. As a matter of fact, if you look on the back here, you can see the two figures that came with the second wave, which was the Wolfman and the Invisible Man. As we talked about before, the Mummy was supposed to be part of this as well, I believe, but the license got pulled, so we have Wolfman and Invisible Man, and we will be taking a look at the Invisible Man later in the month to finish off this line. Now, what we have here is the Jada packaging that we've seen with the previous figures. I really like this packaging. I like how it has like the movie logo of the characters at the bottom right here, how this is like just the Wolfman in the same font as the Universal picture was. Like you could almost just imagine that just appearing across your screen. The Universal Monsters logo, such as it is up here, big window to see what's inside. We have the same artwork that we had from Wave 1, which is just the monster, the bride, and the creature. Over here, whatever this is, more window. The back you've already seen before. Up top, Universal. On the bottom, barcode. So I did like this packaging. I like this packaging for these figures because, one, it was very simple, and two, it kind of did harken back to like that, silver age of movie making when the Universal Monsters reigned supreme, especially with like this logo and just the Universal logo up top. But enough about the box. Well, no, that's not enough about the box. One other thing about the box, we're not going to get too far into it, but if you take a look, you can see how everything is just held in with pressure. There's no ties, there's nothing to clip. He'll just come out, but then as we know from the last line of figures, he'll go right back in. So the packaging is also, just pop this top off, the packaging is also very collector-friendly packaging that you can take him out and then put him back in. So now with that out of the way, now let's get this open and let's take a look at Jada Toys Universal Monsters, the Wolfman. And so here he is, the Wolfman, out of the box, and putting the tape measure to him, we can see that he is roughly almost dead on 6 1/4 inches to the top of his head. So I thought the sculpt work for the first wave of figures, Frankenstein's monster, the creature from the Black Lagoon, the Bride of Frankenstein, Dracula, I thought those were some really good sculpts, especially that Bela Lugosi one that we just took a look at the beginning of the month. This is an improvement in so many ways over that first line. It makes it hurt a little bit more that Jada lost this license, because you can see, especially in the articulation and the mold, and we'll take a look at what I'm talking about in a moment, but you can definitely see where Jada was learning lessons. They weren't afraid to change the way that they were doing things so that they could improve upon the figure. And one of the main things that I thought was the weak point of the first line of Universal Monsters from Jada was actually the bicep cut, where it was just a straight line that was a cut in the plastic. On this one, and we're jumping ahead a little bit, you can see that they started to curve the bicep piece. They started to curve the bicep piece so that it sort of sits there naturally with a curve to it. You can even see when you turn it that the plastic is molded into a curve like the standard 6-inch figures, and that gives it a much tighter hold on the two pieces, that you're not getting that gapping in there. That's just one of the things that I'm talking about, and I think they did a really good job on the bicep swivels of the Wolfman here, and I'm hoping the same was done with the Invisible Man. This also makes me wish that they had done a new body for the Bela Lugosi Dracula, because I think that Dracula would have benefited a magnitude in quality if they would have done the bicep cut like that. Now, taking a look at the sculpt, this sculpt is the Wolfman. This totally harkens back to the Universal movie, that if it was in color, I could see this would be what he looked like, wearing the blue jeans, having just the green button-up shirt. I think this looks really good. And if we bring it closer, you can see that there's texturing in the shirt right here. There's texturing in the jeans down here. This is a very well-conceived figure, and I really like the dark coloring that he has as well. And then the nails are painted, his claws are painted a lighter color that really makes them stand out against the dark figure. Also, the same can be said with his eyes and his teeth right here. I think it's decidedly Universal. It's very striking. It looks good. I think that just even because of like the eyes and these teeth, when you put it on the shelf and people are scanning across, this is going to stand out and they're going to be like, oh, hey, what's that? And they're going to move in and take a look at it. I also really like the detail work that they put in the belt down here. The silver of the buckle, the silver of the tab piece, of the end piece right here. They painted the blue for the belt buckles all around. I really, really like this figure. The Creature from the Black Lagoon had been my favorite, or currently is my favorite. This might take its place, but I don't want to say anything until we get the Invisible Man out, because I have a feeling I'm really going to like the Invisible Man figure as well. I just think this looks really good, and then even has the cuffs down here for his jeans. I think this looks great. Now, taking a look at the articulation, that his head will do a full 360 spin. Unfortunately, he can't look up as far as I would like him to so that he could get those Howl at the Moon poses. He can look down. Head has some tilt side to side. Arms will do a full 360 spin. Still no butterfly joint in there. Arms will come up 290. You saw before, we have that bicep swivel. Double jointed elbows, which this is another area where I feel like Jada could do some work so that it doesn't have this flat bend to it. Maybe round out the elbow piece a little bit so that it looks like there's a little bit of a curve to the elbow instead of just piece, flat, piece. But like I said, they're learning, they're getting to work on it, and I don't doubt that in the next line of figures for like their Street Fighter or even Mega Man, maybe, that they'll take care of that. We see he has an ab cut right in here, that this will let him do a full 360 spin. Doesn't really get much leaning back. Really comes into play whenever he wants to crank forward. And there is some side-to-side rock there as well. Ball joint at the waist that also lets you do a full 360. And you can see how the shirt is kind of bunched up back here. That's where he can really get some leaning back going. But if you go too far, you'll start to see the articulation hole. I don't know, the hole in the bottom right there for the ball joint. He can come forward as well. Doesn't really show that much in the back. And this gives you not nearly as much tilt, but a little bit, so that when you use everything in conjunction, he can really rear back and he can really come forward. So I appreciate that. Get his arms up out of the way. Legs will come up to just under 90. Legs will come forward. Legs will go back. You have a thigh cut right in there. That once again, I think the thigh cut, because the legs have some detail to them, the jeans and everything, I feel like the thigh cut is a little bit better hidden than some of the previous ones, where like when you turn this, you don't see something that's like obnoxiously butting out. We have double jointed knees, which the knees I feel have the same issue as the elbows, but I don't doubt that they'll be taking care of that. No boot for the boot cut, but the ankle, the foot does pivot. Ankle rocks way back. Ankle rocks way forward. There is forward-facing pin for rocker right in there. And one thing I want to draw attention to is that the crotch piece on the Wolfman here is a soft rubber, almost like the McFarlane figures. Not nearly as rubbery, though, so that whenever you bring his feet up, or his legs up, you can see that it does bunch up a little. So just be aware of that. Don't keep him in any high leg positions for too long. Otherwise, this may start to deform and rip. Out of the packaging, the Wolfman does have the open clawed gonna getcha hands. And he does come with an extra set of hands, which both of them are slightly gripping hands. This is like an open gripping hand right here. And this is a closed gripping hand. And this is for one of the accessories that he comes with, which we're going to take a look at in a second. And that is his cane. Now we're going to take a look at the articulation for the hands right here. Because on our Wolfman, they do spin at the wrists, unsurprisingly, and most of the hands will pivot in and out like this. However, this one over here, that's his accessory holding hand for the cane, it pivots up and down. And I find it very interesting that it does that, and we'll talk about why in a moment when we get to the accessories. Now, looking at the head sculpt, I think Jada did a really good job with this head sculpt. I love the detail in it. I love the color in it. I love how you can see all of the molding for the fur in the face and in the hair. It's a little smoothed out here, where in the movie it would have just been face paint, but you can see the hair strands along like the back of the cheeks and the chin, and especially in like, you know, his real hair right here. I think this looks great. This is actually the neutral look for the Wolfman, believe it or not, because the other head sculpt that he comes with right here, you can see is a much more aggressive, snarling face. And at first glance, you may wonder, like I did, what's the difference? But when you really take a look at it, you can see that this one is much more like bad dog type look. He has a more furrowed brow. His eyes are more intense. His upper lip is pulled back, and he's definitely like in a more snarling posture. Now, the heads are very easy to swap out. They move much better than Dracula's do. And you don't really get a good satisfying pop when you push the Wolfman's head back down, at least not on mine, but it is there and it does stay on. But now take a look at that like it completely changes his demeanor. And you still have all of that really rich detail, that great dark coloring, that black wash and that dry brush that like really brings out the details of the fur around his face. And that is great. But you also have some more lines right here in the cheeks, just like the tension, the anger, the savagery. I really like this. I think this looks really good. Now, the Wolfman doesn't have much as far as accessory goes. We've already taken a look at his additional hands, and we've seen his alternate head sculpt. And this right here is a replica of the bear trap that was used in the movie. And this looks great. I like the coloring of it. I like the silver for the metal. I really like the coloring of the rust on here. And yes, the bear trap does close up. It doesn't clamp shut completely, but it does close to where it would close naturally, and you'll be able to like clamp that around his foot, keep him trapped in there. The chain on here is a real metal chain. I always like that touch. Jada was real big on using metal chains for their figures. We saw that with Frankenstein's monster. We saw that with the Bride of Frankenstein. I really dig that. I think this is a cool accessory, because it's one of those ones that like you would be able to use this for something else, not just this, and I really dig that. The only other accessory that he comes with is this wolf head cane that's made of silver, and this looks great. I love the shininess to the black of it. I love that lacquered wood look, and I really like the silver tip down here at the end and the silver of the wolf's head up top. I think the detail work on this is phenomenal. I really like that. I'm trying to get as close as I can without losing focus, but look at that. That looks really good. That looks so good. I really like that. Now, in the movie, this was actually the object of his demise. They didn't, spoiler alert for a movie that came out like in the 50s, but they didn't shoot him with a silver bullet. He was actually beaten down with this cane because of the silver head, the silver handle right here. And that is what his gripping hand, his closed gripping hand is for. It is a very tight, very solid fit so that he can hold this. But he was actually beaten down with it. Now, what I do appreciate is that the handle, let's get that out of there. It's a little tight getting this piece in there. So just watch the rub, the paint transfer on there. But what I do appreciate is that this is a thick enough shaft that, let's bring in any old character, like Zartan, and other 6-inch figures will be able to get a grip on it. Now, it'll be looser depending on the figure because Zartan's hands are made for holding guns. Let's see if I can get a little bit tighter on there. But it will fit for most of your 6-inch line right there. The only thing that I wish that it did differently, or what they had done differently, was that I wish the cane, I wish the cane in and of itself was a little bit longer, so that it would touch the ground completely. Like, it almost does, but it's just above the ground. And that is, like, it's so close to be annoying that, like, if they would have just gone, like, maybe another quarter inch, if that, it would be touching the ground right now. And now for size comparison, here he is beside fellow Jada Toys Universal Monsters Count Dracula and Frankenstein's monster. Here he is beside Hasbro G.I. Joe Classified Series Zartan and Stalker. Here he is beside McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Blackest Night Batman and Arkham City, I think, Catwoman. Here he is beside McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Collect-A-Build Solomon Grundy and Beast Boy. Here he is beside DC Direct Cheetah and Playmates Toys Leonardo from the TMNT Stranger Things 2-pack. And finally, here he is beside NECA Toys Dungeons & Dragons Warduke and Grimsword. I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. I think it is a shame that Jada Toys lost the license for this line. Not only because we're not going to be able to complete it with the Mummy and the Phantom of the Opera, but because we can see from this figure that they were learning, they were taking notes, they were figuring out what worked and what doesn't work, and they were putting it to use, and they were improving upon their figure creation. Now, I can only hope, and I can only guess, that this is going to carry over into their Street Fighter line, and more than likely into their Mega Man line. While the accessories were few that came with this figure, I do like them, and it is the Wolfman. What else are you going to give him? I like that they gave him the bear trap, because like I said, that I feel like that is something that can be used in other lines. Like even G.I. Joe, for example, you could give it to Crocmaster and like have one of his Crocs get caught in it. I do like that they gave us the cane to go with him as well, although I do find it amusing that he has that gripping hand specifically for holding the cane, even though he was pretty much beat to death with the cane. I like the sculpt on it. I like the texturing on it. I do like the paint apps on it, although I do think that maybe the fur, the wolfy parts, are a little too dark. But I do really like the wash that they put into it, that black wash that makes the fur stand out, especially around the feet, around the toes. You get those deep cuts into the toes that really make them stand out. I like sort of like the off-white, the bone white of his nails. Those pop against the dark fur. I really like how those stand out. And I like the little details, like the eyes and the teeth just standing out on that dark brown face, and the silver buckling for the belt. I think that is all a very nice touch. The Wolfman is still available for sale on Big Bad Toy Store. They still have some of him in stock. I'll put a link to that in the description below. Also, if you're worried that you missed out on the first wave of figures, they do have a 3-pack right now on Jada Next Level that includes Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, and the standard release of the Creature from the Black Lagoon. Unfortunately, they don't have any figures of the Bride, and I think the Bride might be sold out. So that might be the one that people miss out on. While the design of the Universal Wolfman wasn't quite as canine as, say, something like an American Werewolf in London or some of the other werewolves that we've seen later in movies and film and TV, it is very iconic. Even though it has that flat look, that flat featured face to it, it is a very iconic design for the Wolfman, that whenever you see a Wolfman like this, you know immediately this is a Universal Monsters Wolfman. As a matter of fact, I think that's why on Monster Squad, if you saw that movie, they had to completely redesign the Wolfman, the werewolf, so that, like, he wasn't even close to looking like the Universal Wolfman. So keep an eye out when you go out at night, friends, because it is that time of the year when the full moon is high, the werewolves are out. Happy Halloween, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, thank you for watching.